Right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Gray. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the January 9th, 2019 Inland Wetlands Commission Monroe meeting. It is currently 7:06, and the first order of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce the members of the commission here tonight. Starting on my right is Commissioner Jim Stewart, who is our treasurer. He's a licensed land surveyor and a professional engineer. My name is Jason Grady. I am your humble chairman. To my left is our vice chairman, Jeff Shamus. He's a certified ecologist, a certified soil scientist, and a professional wetlands scientist. To his left is Commissioner Lois Spence. She's our secretary. Next is Don Orshazinski, who is our Inland and Wetlands Coordinator and Commission and Land Use Coordinator. Next is Scott Schatzeline, who is our town engineer. He is a licensed professional engineer, inland wetlands agent. Right, those are what I say now. And also with us today is Sarah Stroud, who is our clerk in training. I got everybody? Excellent.
And did you get Keith that just came in?
Oh, I didn't see it, sorry. The record will reflect that Commissioner Keith Romano is here. Sorry, snuck in, ninja. Before we start, I will read you our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetlands Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a representation or presentation to the commission during and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be opened up for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or the commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during the response. Please keep any and all comments pro and con, specific to inland wetlands related matters. Other applications that do not involve public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
There's just one addition under item 12, other, under determination, general discussion and other. We're just going to add clarification to agent approval requirements. Discussion.
Do that before the minutes, I guess. All right. So now is the portion of our agenda reserved for public participation. If there's anybody present that would like to make a general comment of a general nature as it of an inland wetlands, but not of anything on this agenda. Nope. Okay. So we have no subdivision reports or recommendations, no regulated activities tonight. We'll move on to enforcement, notice of violation discussion. First up is IWV 2018-15, 4-7182 Main Street, filling piles of raw material within upland review area. 7182 Main Street LLC, care of Mitchell Desso.
That's been scheduled for the next meeting, so.
Right, that's been tabled to our next meeting, pending soil test results, right?
Yes.
All right. IWV 2018-16, 781 Main Street, unpermitted use within 100 50-foot upland review area, town line auto body. I think that's supposed to say auto body there, right?
It's Town Line Body Shop, yeah,
Body shop or auto body?
body shop, I believe.
All right.
Okay, you guys could come up. I'm just going to give them a quick little summary of what we already talked about, and they have some questions for you. Okay? So this came to us as part of a repair. It was a septic system failed, and they needed a emergency repair. So in the process of looking at that, we saw that there was a violation in the rear of the property. So what we did was as always, we tried to keep the business running, and so I issued an agent approval for them to do the septic work and keep that, get that done and stay operating. And then we handled the violation as a separate issue, and that is, if you recall, I brought this report up here to you, and we went over the piece of property with the bins in the back and the encroachment on the abutting property, all within the upland review area, and potentially some of the wetland area. It's not real clear at this point. So you indicated that you wanted me to issue a notice of violation, and that would request that the property owner be here, and that's what we're doing. Now, the purpose of the meeting tonight is merely to get input from you as far as, what's going on the property, kind of how this came to be, what your plans are, potential plans are for the future. And then the commission is going to determine what method, what process would be needed to resolve this issue. Whether it's a very simple administrative thing, whether nothing needs to be done, or whether a submission to the commission of engineering plans, et cetera. So that's what they're here to do tonight, just kind of hear what you have to say and then decide what process is needed in order to resolve it. So with that, why don't you step to the microphone and so that we can get you on the record.
Okay, my name is Ronald Putamani, owner of Town Line Body Shop. I've been there approximately 42 years. Concerning the violations, over the years, the cars have changed in structure, where when we first started the business, there's more repair than replacement of parts, and now it's more replacement of parts, and we ran out of room to store customers' parts, and with the techs and with their toolboxes, it's just we're tight for working area, and that's how it started. So we, and in the fall weather, we put the coverage up. If we know what I say, if an insurance appraisers come in, we have no room inside because all the techs are working inside. So it was basically to keep the cars dry for inspections. I didn't realize that we're in violation. In the years prior, we had, they call them coverages, they're the plastic material buildings. And from there, we went to the 20-foot containers. Easy to line up, and they serve their purpose. And that's basically, over the years, where we are now. We're running out of space. We served the town for many years, and our business working there. We're a clean operation. We have no violations from motor vehicle department, and no violations as far as I'm concerned. This is the first, other than the previous fill that we had done, and that was taken care of over a couple-year period. Other than that, we've been a clean operation. I don't know what else.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. We're just, so you understand what the issue is here. The purpose of tonight is we want to hear from you what exactly, we obviously have an issue here that we have to get taken care of. We appreciate you coming in, being so responsive, and we want to know what your plan is to, or how you want to, what your plan is here to fix that.
now that we know that we have a violation, one of the things are, can we move those containers on another part of the property? Or I don't know what options are for, I don't know anything about the zoning. Or if we could add on to the back of the building, or, I really don't know. I need your help on what we're allowed to do, because we're residential.
So this is
Yeah,
not a zoning issue, this is, that's a different, body. This commission concentrates on the fact that you are in, if so, maybe Scott can explain.
Yeah, let me fill in some gaps and I'll bring you up to speed as far as what's happening. We sent out the notice of violation, and I got word from Mr. DeVista that he is going to be handling the project. He's the engineer and he's sitting right there. And he came in, we had a meeting with the zoning office. And the discussion centered around correct me if I'm wrong, but the desire to find an alternative for these bins that are out there. And the first thought was that they could put a building in, an outbuilding, a larger building that would take in all that. And so we had a lengthy discussion. There are a number of hurdles on the property, the zone, there needs a zone, possibly a zone change, variance, a number of things that has to be addressed for zoning purposes. So we're underway. We gave him a lot of food for thought. He was going to go back to the drawing board and see if he could come up with something that would fit here and that would work. We talked about there may be a little bit more room over in this area because the wetland comes out further. I told him that the commission typically in a commercial area, especially one where the disturbance has been there for quite some time, typically does allow something within the upland review area, but there would be a desire to see a dense buffer in any remaining area. So we talked about a second building, we talked about an addition on here. The units that are there are not allowed by zoning. You can't locate them somewhere else on the property, so that wasn't really a viable solution. Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's about where we were with the discussion on it. And we were going to be waiting for him to try to plug through it and see what the plan would be. It was either, of course, the other option is to just remediate. So the discussion was, look, if you want to come in with a plan of development, of developing it and moving forward that way, then you could come in with a plan, and part of the application would be remediation, the other part would be a plan for proposed development. I told him that the commission will be interested in a deadline, to discuss some kind of deadline of how long will it take you to come up with that plan and submit it. And if they could not come up with the money or whatever to actually do the improvements, then there would be another thought that, hey, at some point you're going to have to do the remediation, that you wouldn't wait forever for the development to happen. So that's what we talked about, and it was a productive meeting. And I told them they should just come tonight and kind of talk with the commission and see if they could work out that schedule and give whatever input that they have.
What's happening with the two, I don't know if they're sheds or buildings that are like in the wetland off the property? Straddle the property line?
Well, the other thing we talked about is I told him that although this is another property, certainly, and that the commission typically likes to start out with addressing the violation and asking the property owner to go to the abutter and try to work that out and incorporate that into their remediation and submission. If that isn't achieved, then as we've done in the past, we would be forced to issue a violation on the neighbor, and then it will be a civil issue between the two neighbors. So we're hoping that their engineering can incorporate the abutter and resolve that as well, and we're hoping that the abutter will work with them to do that. But if they don't, then as I said, we gotta do a separate violation. I've found that it's easier to do it that way, because it puts the onus on them, and it saves a lot of work on our part, and then we only have to do that work if nothing else, if all else fails, then, yeah, we have to do that, and it forces them to the table.
So it kind of seems to me that a decision has to be made by the owner on what they want to do for the alternate storage for the storage containers that zoning, is not allowing, right?
Yeah, and the problem that we had with the meeting was that there's so many restrictions, because it's a residential property, and we talked about a zone change, and then there's, the use isn't allowed in some of the zone, it's only allowed in one of the zones, and then there's a variance, and there's a whole bunch of things that pile on top of each other, that he's really got to go and sit down and really work through this to see if they could even fit anything there, even with the zone change and whatever. And then, once he has an idea, if he can get something done, then we could talk again. If not, if it looks like, you just can't carve out any more area on this property to fit that, then we would be talking a straight remediation submission. But they need time to do that. They have to, he's got to go through the engineering of it and do that. So I told him that it would be a discussion about how much time would be realistic.
I mean, not knowing what they're proposing to do, it's tough to come up with a time frame. Maybe we can give them some time to figure out what they want to do, and then they come back to us in a month or two and say, hey, we've decided to do this. And then we can say, okay, how long is it going to take you to do that?
Well, I mean, as I said, it's a plan for development, so they're gonna come in with a building or an addition. Building, addition, or just straight remediation. So, to
So
me.
it sounds like it's being worked on,
Yeah,
right? So,
What did the P and Z Commission say? How much time did they give them to come up with
we
something?
had a meeting with the planning and zoning administrator.
It's just the- Okay,
Yeah,
so.
so,
they-
I'll just throw it out there, what I'm
Right.
thinking is 90 days, 60, 90 days, I mean, they should be able to put something together by then.
Does that sound good?
Why don't you guys chime in, tell them how much time you think you need?
I mean, that's not, I think 90 days is a good number to work with right now, because we have to, like Scott was saying, we have a lot of issues we have to deal with, not so much with your commission, but with also with planning and zoning, with zone changes, and also see with what my client's looking for in terms of a building, what's the cost gonna be, can get it on there, it's gonna, or in addition to the building, or do something, so we need some time to work that thing. I think a 90-day period would be sufficient for us to do that. If not, then I'll talk to Scott and we'll ask for more time, but I think start with 90 days is good.
Is there anything at the present moment that we should be concerned about? Like anything that's actually, like a violation should be moved like immediately, or some kind of a marker? I mean, is there any materials there that could be sensitive? Or we might just want to,
Stuff's been there for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
It's been ongoing for quite some time.
I mean, the biggest concern I have is the existing leaching,
It's
the
a image
trench that, I don't know if there's anything leaking off into it, but
I mean,
there's a
it looks-
carport over it and a storage container and stuff.
What's that in the septic that you're talking about?
The behind the building, that trench drain, basically, leaching field of,
Oh, the septic,
that doesn't say septic, it just says a leaching trench.
well, that's what it is. That's the leaching field for the septic system.
Oh,
So that's, and that's what Scott had approved to mitigate the failing septic system.
Yeah, the septic system's getting relocated, so it used to be behind the building here, you see the image
Septic.
up on the wall? Used to be here, and then it's now going way over here.
yeah, I saw that on the plans.
So the part that I approved was this going around the side of the building here is in the upland review area. So the septic tank and part of the force main is in this part of the,
Yep.
the fields themselves are not in
Right,
review.
fields are not in the upland review area.
But it looks pretty well defined behind these bins,
Mhm.
that, you know, those were put there some time ago and they don't mess with behind them, it doesn't look like from the image anyway. And, so, you know, whether it gets remediated now or a couple months from now.
What I mean was, my comment before was, like, if we would never allow a business to park a vehicle with chemicals in it, like, within a certain area, should we request that, you know, be done immediately, because it can be an active problem? Meaning, like, if there, I'm not saying that there is, but let's say there was a car parked in an area we would never allow, okay? And say, like, at this point, you have to meet, because that could potentially be a problem, you know, leaking oil pan or something like that, anything like that, where you're, in the meantime, let's not make anything get any worse. Follow what I'm saying?
You could do that, I mean, you could say, like, for instance, there's vehicles over here, it looks like some, vehicle-related debris over here as well. The wetlands are right next to it. I mean, you can say, you know, you want it cleaned up immediately. You don't have to entertain the development portion of this. You can say you want it remediated, just remediate it, and then come in the future if they want to come in. The commission has typically, you know, in the past, you've entertained when someone says, you know, like in this case, he's got these bins, and he wants to get rid of the bins, and he's like, well, I'll put them in a building where it'll be safe and away, you know, it'll be enclosed and whatever. So in the past, you've entertained that when people have said, look, can I package this with development as well? Because in that way, they get something for the money that they're spending. They can clean up their, you know, in a case like this, you can clean up the property, get some of this outside storage stuff that's clearly not gonna be allowed in zoning or wetlands, get it into the building, and, you know, everybody gets a little bit of what they want. So, I mean, in the past, that's typically been the route that I kind of steer people if they're willing to do.
Well, another major concern for me is the encroachment on the neighbor, because that involves us if it doesn't get taken care of. So
Yep.
I would request that there be communication with the neighbor as soon as possible to work out whatever it is that needs to be worked out. Because it is his property that you're on, and because you're on it, and there's a violation, he becomes responsible for it. So there can be civil matters, you know, and rather than going that far, if you took care of it before it became a civil issue, then it would be easier on everybody.
Yeah, what that was, that part adjacent to us, that was for sale. State policeman had that, and there's the brook in between. And right now, that's an underground phone station on that property. So when he would always come to check when it was for sale, he asked us if we wanted to buy it, and I said, well, the brook is right there, it really has nothing to do with us. But we maintained that whole section there over the years, making sure it was clean, the water was going through, sometimes we had to clean out the pipes. And we gradually used it to park cars and for a driveway to extend. So what I would, right now, I would probably call the phone company and see if we could
It's
purchase it.
phone company property?
Yeah, they put an underground station in there.
Well, if you still purchase it, doesn't mean you still don't have to clean it up. So
Right.
you're still gonna, so why would you buy, you can't use it, right? It's right next to a brook.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to use it, you're gonna have to clean it up, so it's, whether,
So you just
you know, there's
throw
really
your
no
money.
purpose in owning it other than it could have benefits for the development of your property. It might give you more percentage to build or that kind of thing.
So it's not to build, it was just to get around the building on that one
No, no,
short
what
side.
I'm saying is, sometimes there might be a benefit to owning property that you can't build on, because it allows you to do more on your other portions of your property, percentage of building coverage and things like that.
Yeah.
That's something you could talk to with your engineer, but what they're saying is that has to be part of the remediation. And it's much easier if you deal with the abutter now and get on the same page so that you can come in as one together and remediate this.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I wanted to add was that, so there'll be a time frame for bringing in a submission to the commission. And then there'll be a time frame for actually achieving it, actually getting the work done. So those are gonna be the two time thresholds.
Well, we did have a contractor come in and lay out a preliminary building, but again, that's why I mentioned zoning before. I don't know what we're allowed to do with the zone we're in now versus the zone change. So I'd have to figure out what our options, what we can do with this zone versus if we do a zone
Right,
change.
that's what I referred to, that we've already had
Yeah.
a meeting on that, and that's what we're looking
I
for.
mean, we're willing to, you know, I don't want any violations. I mean, we've had a clean operation. I mean, I'm gonna do what I can do to get it done in a fair amount of time. But like you said, we have to keep the business running, but we'll cooperate any way we can and just make sure we get it done one way or the other. But I don't know what my options are, what we can do, like you say, where we could put a building, the size of the building. I really don't know yet.
Okay, so I guess what it sounds like to me is the commission is discussing now that we're willing to give you 90 days from this meeting to come back with a plan on how we're gonna address the violation. So if that includes you either just addressing the violation, I'm sorry?
Or site,
So you want the submission of a remediation plan?
Either
or-
remediation or remediation development combination, right?
Yep,
So 90 days from now, we'd ask you guys to come back with a plan on how you're gonna address this violation. So if that is just addressing the violation or addressing it with developing something else, you could do that combination thing that I think Scott and your engineer had already discussed.
Yeah.
So 90 days from now, you come back with a clear plan on what you're gonna do to at least take care of the violation. That's what this commission is concerned about. As far as the zoning stuff, I'm sorry, this commission does
No,
not
I
govern
understand that now,
So
right.
I couldn't give you any real guidance on that. So 90 days, right? Everybody's okay with 90 days? So we'll see you back here. When's that meeting? Does anybody have their list out?
Oh, that would be, hold on.
March
Well, it'll be
something.
the first meeting in first meeting in April.
yeah, it's gonna be the first meeting in April.
First meeting in April?
And if you could move Scott, can you move that up a little bit so you can see the northern portion? Where the car parts are and stuff that are right next to the
That's an
wetland?
old photo, and there's nothing there now.
There's nothing
That's
there
all
now.
been cleaned
Okay.
up.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, there's nothing there at all in that corner right
Great.
now.
That's awesome.
Here's
April
2015,
April 10th.
so this is more recent. I mean, you're saying it's probably even more cleaned up even more than this?
Oh, yeah, definitely,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
so this is 2015, and then,
Excellent.
Good. That's one less thing to worry about.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, so that first meeting in
April
April, on April 10th is that meeting. We'll have you guys come back with some sort of plan, and we'll figure out how we can get this thing taken care of. And like I said, you can, hopefully by then you'll have a clear picture of what you want to do going forward.
Okay,
All right, thanks for coming in.
thank you.
okay, let's see.
Okay. Up next on our agenda is remediation submission, IWR 2018-05, 20 Founders Way, Porter Conservation Area Swap and Remediation.
So today I got an email from Spafford Dorkland that was requesting a continuance of the January 9th Inland Wetland Commission hearing till January 23rd.
yeah, granting it when, obviously, this is a remediation or violation, so it would be more like the commission deciding if you're gonna grant them the extra time to do
You
that.
guys, till our next meeting?
Yes.
You guys okay with that, granting until our next meeting?
Yeah, they
Okay.
have Spath Bjorklund doing the plan. I just want to clarify on the wording here, if you may notice, it says conservation area swap. I had lengthy conversation with their attorney and tried to explain to that a swap is something that in the past you voiced as a group that you don't want to see that as a solution.
Right.
And I've been trying to point them in the direction of remediation without the swap. And so far, I have not been able to do that. They've indicated to me that or the attorney, that he feels that they have a right to ask. So
Didn't they
I,
ask last
They
time?
did,
They asked
the
last time, and we gave them an answer.
yeah.
So can we,
They
how,
want-
you will notify them what, via email that they've been granted their
Yes, and
extension?
so what, I don't know if you're remembering it or not, there was a whole conversation about that, about the swap, and you did go into great lengths, the whole
Yeah,
commission
okay,
did.
that was in the other room.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And they had requested to come back this meeting because they still wanted to discuss it with the commission.
In our communications with them, saying that we granted their, and you guys can weigh in and tell me if I'm off base. In our communications with them telling that we've granted their extension to our next meeting, because obviously they're not here, so. Can we say to them that we are not, at this point, we are not willing to vote on a submission that includes any sort of conservation easement swap, land swap, or can we not do that?
Well,
You have to give them their time.
We
Well,
did
right.
last meeting.
Last meeting.
Sounds like you did.
We
You
did
were
at the
there.
last
But
meeting.
they specifically requested to come back because they wanted to discuss it more with you.
Oh,
Did we see what they were proposing?
it doesn't
I
matter.
mean, was I, well,
That
well,
was-
why,
that
why
really
wasn't
wasn't the
closure put
point.
on it then? Did they bring?
Because they specifically requested to come back and continue the conversation.
So the minutes could reflect the fact that the commission is not interested in further discussing a swap,
Okay.
and then open it up at the next meeting when they come in, and, I mean, just have it.
That's perfectly fine, I just
That's what
was
my- I don't know.
clarifying.
Uh,
Yeah, so
I mean,
to clarify, you guys are looking for them to discuss the remediation and that, what we can relay that, what you just said about the easements. I had a lengthy conversation and tried to explain that as well. And I think it's not quite understood that there are multiple steps in that process theoretically. And also, the other issue is that there's a duplication in that there may be a conservation easement, but there's also an upland review area that you guys fully have authority
And
over.
that conservation easement area is a buffer to the wetlands, much more so than what they want to swap.
And I'm just
It's a
reading.
more important area.
And my concern is even if it weren't, to get into that kind of,
Don't want to get into that.
once you do that, you're gonna have everybody here wanting to do a swap and saying that, well, you let them, and, it just defeats the whole purpose of.
I mean, I
the
agree
creation
that
of
it ought to
these-
be a very hard sell. But if they were offering something better,
For clarification purposes, there is an entire page.
Yeah,
on
but
I
our-
doubt that's gonna ever happen.
No, it very well could happen, and,
Then-
but the problem with that, there's a big problem with that, and that is that conservation easements aren't required by your commission, they're offered to your commission for specific purposes at specific times during public hearings and things like that. Now, for example, you could be a property owner in a development, in a subdivision, that buys with the understanding that this conservation easement is there, right? And then 10 years later, it gets changed. That person comes in and says, wait a minute, I bought knowing that there's a conservation easement, now there's not a conservation easement? And that's why it gets very difficult, because it involves public hearings and all kinds of things. So sometimes it's not even about the environment, it's about, the easement in the first place, why was it proposed? And it's supposed to be in perpetuity, so I guess we probably shouldn't get into it too far.
For procedural I'm just looking at our draft copy of our minutes from last meeting, and there's an entire single-spaced page dedicated to the fact that we do not want to entertain anything about a conservation easement land swap, an entire page. So part of the problem that I have been struggling with, being a part of this commission as the chairman, is that we keep revisiting the same issue over and over again, and it drags out our business unnecessarily. So,
Did you read the final paragraph on the next page 9?
there's another paragraph too, oops. Okay, yeah, we granted the request to table it to our next meeting, so.
But you did state that you're willing to have the meeting as long as the applicant understands the issue.
Okay.
Which is that we're really not very interested.
Right.
So I'm just confused, so, that meeting is just more discussion about it, it's not an actual submission, is that correct?
I don't think they had the information to submit to us, right?
They didn't at the time, no, I don't think so.
They
said
just
they were
talked
working
about
on it.
that's
But
what the plan was.
No,
No,
we
have
have
a
a
submission,
submission.
we have a full submission.
You have a full
I'm not
We
submission.
have
remembering
maps
Yeah.
and all that,
Sorry.
and the areas that they want to
Yeah,
exchange
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yes, there is a full submission that was done.
Oh, I remember, okay, so
Yes.
they actually submitted it as if it was a development
Right,
application.
and it's
They
not.
And I got
did.
into a conversation about that,
And
it's
saying
the
it was not.
it's the wrong, form.
Application, yes.
Yeah, and it's not a development, it doesn't follow the whole legal parameters that a development application follows. And that's where I'm kind of shaky ground, because the attorney's saying, well, we have rights to submit an application, and I'm like, it's not an
It's not
application,
a
it's a
development
remediation.
application, it's not, right, it's not an application.
You know, so,
It's-
but I guess theoretically, they have the right to submit an application to the commission to change a conservation easement. If that's even possible, they have the right to require, to go for that.
To request it.
I've explained to them that that's gonna involve town council, inland wetlands, P&Z, and I'm not sure what else,
And
but,
all it would take was one commission to say no,
right.
and it doesn't happen.
And that the area overlaps into wetlands which can be separate from the conservation easement.
So we could vote down the change in the conservation easement and vote down the activity in the regulated area.
Along
But we'd
with,
have to hear it first.
you would have to hear it first.
Okay, well, I guess it's
hear it
answered, so
Move on.
we'll hear it on the 23rd. On a related topic, is that, are we required to entertain that as part of law or part of our regulations?
Not in the regulations.
Gotta give
Say
people
that
due
again?
process.
It's,
Yeah, I mean,
if it's required at all, it would
If-
be someplace else other than the
it
regulations.
is part of your, I wouldn't say regulations, but it's under your authority, because when easement is granted, it's granted through the inland wetlands process, or through the planning and zoning process, or both. So when it's offered and accepted, it then becomes required by the commission.
Is this, I guess what I'm asking, forgive my ignorance, is we are in the process we have a regulation amendment committee, and we're in the process of reviewing that, correct? Is this something that we could clean up in that process of regulation amendments?
I
So we
think-
don't have to deal with this over and
I
over?
don't think you can, because
Okay,
you can't add something more restrictive than what's in the public act.
okay,
Um,
that's my question.
It comes to be because some developer in the past offered it for whatever reason.
Okay. All right. So, do I need a motion to grant that extension, or just, do we need to vote on that, or do we
Go
just
ahead.
grant it?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
But we could have it be a policy of the commission, or if it needs to be in our
Practice.
bylaws, that one of our practices is not to, do conservation area swaps.
Yeah.
But then you're shutting the door on anything that might make sense in the future, that,
I understand, it's,
And I might point,
as much sense as it might make,
yeah,
once you do it,
I know, that opens it up, yeah.
That's it.
and it
The
was
floodgates open.
done once in the past, And it was done, I don't know if any of you
Oh,
were
I
on it.
remember.
It was done because there was an error in the survey.
Mhm.
And that, it's a long story, but there was an error in the survey, and because of that, it involved the stone wall and the survey line, and what the difference between those two things were and the error in the plan, so that it was a minimal swap, but it was done for technical purposes, to more accurately show what they intended in the
Okay.
first place.
Right.
Yeah, I guess
So.
I just
I'll
want to
move-
make sure that we continue to be consistent on all these things, so that we don't open ourselves to an issue on the
All right,
next
so
one.
I'll continue to express that, and we'll see what happens.
I'll
All right.
move, so if we need a motion, I'll move that we extend it to the next meeting.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Spence to grant the extension to our January 23rd meeting.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stewart. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Unanimously, not unanimously.
January 3rd,
Whatever.
what meeting? Extended to what?
Oh, the next meeting.
123, right?
Yes.
23rd, yeah.
That's what they, as
Yes,
requested.
January
23rd.
23rd.
All right.
January 3rd.
Application hearing determinations. IWC 2018-15, 575 Monroe Turnpike. Feria, installation of new septic system, including leach fields and expanded parking area.
Okay, I didn't have much time to look at these, but, this is an application for a daycare center. Installing a septic system, leaching field to replace the existing system, and a parking area to support a child daycare service. It's an existing one-story residence right now. So the property is, overall project site is 44,000, so just over an acre. Wetlands on the property is 0.31 acres. Upland review areas on the property is 0.6 acres. So they're listing the total area of regulated wetlands to be disturbed as 0, with 0.01, which is 646, so fairly minimal impact or encroachment into the upland review area. That's about all I noticed. They have, it looks like they've incorporated stormwater retention and water quality, although I haven't really reviewed it yet. I noticed a little bit of a peninsula of upland that extends into the wetland. I'll see if I can research that a little bit to see what that's all about. At first, I thought this brook, water course coming through here was Beardsley Brook, but I think that is beyond the property. I think this is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, feeding into that. So,
Mhm.
so it's the 100-foot upland review area.
All right, so they're taking a house, want to make it into a daycare, right? Right on 111? Do we need this to be, do we want this to be a public hearing or a regular meeting?
I think we could probably do regular meeting on this one. That's just my opinion. I'll see what everybody else thinks.
Is that because of the minimal encroachment?
Yeah, minimal encroachment and though apparent significant impact. And it's in the middle of the woods. I mean, this is right opposite Goodwill, the old Goodwill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's in between hydraulic property and nothing. So it's really,
Well, my concern is the amount that they're developing in the upland review, just about to the wetland line, which is where the watercourse is.
wait a minute, they're not developing that.
Which, what are you looking at?
You know,
What are you looking at?
you're,
Which data accumulation? Yeah.
Lois, I think you're in the wrong place. It's further north.
here. That's the wetlands and water course, see all that? Goes
Oh, there, okay, yeah, because of the septic system, right.
I mean,
I
there's,
was looking at the parking lot, not the septic system at the time.
This is,
Okay.
did I get this? I believe this is across from,
From Steve's, and,
yeah, this is further north.
used to
than-
be the Goodwill.
Oh, the old
The old
Goodwill.
Goodwill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You're
to me,
right.
it's still the
Yeah, you threw
Goodwill,
me
so,
off
it's, yeah, sorry about that, I didn't mean to throw you off. So, but yeah, I had forgotten about that extra, development. One thing I did notice we do need for next time, regardless of the type of meeting we have on it, and that is a planting plan. There is no planting plan.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Spence to move this to a regular meeting.
Did we have a motion?
Make a
I
motion.
said, I didn't.
Oh, I'm
actually-
sorry. I apologize.
I kind of threw the concept out there. I
Wishful
wanted to see
thinking.
if anybody else grabbed it. So,
Does anybody else think this needs to be a public hearing?
Jeff,
I'd like more information
oh, make it a
on
public hearing.
the proposal. It doesn't necessarily have to be a public hearing to get more information, but the information that we have is, does not explain existing conditions, proposed conditions as it relates to impacts to the wetlands and water courses. Existing, doesn't even show existing tree line. In terms of what we're losing, so there's going to be some, even though there's no direct impact to the resource area, there's direct impacts to the upland review area and indirect impacts to the wetlands due to their disturbance going right up to it, as well as, I've got some issues with their drainage design that I'm sure Scott will pick up a bunch of things.
Okay, but does that require a public hearing, do you feel? Because if not, we can iron out all that stuff at the first meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to have to push it to a public hearing. I'd rather not.
Okay, then I'll make the motion that we move this to a regular meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Spence, a second by Commissioner Stewart. All those in favor of moving this application to a regular meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? The motion passes.
So
This to be a
Scott, can
regular
you
meeting.
see if you can get some of that information for us before, so we don't have to drag this on forever?
Yeah, I mean, I would do that as part of my review.
Okay, excellent.
I'm in for the next one.
It's right here. Oh, you're
Now
in
you
hell.
two. That's why we're-
Okay.
IWC 2019-01. Well, that's the first one of 2019.
There we go.
5 Bridge Road LLC, Kimball, create 2 residential lots with associated site improvements.
Okay, so this is that street that goes down to the Lake Zor and the river that goes into Lake Zor.
It's right next to the
Maybe.
gas station. It's right before the gas station.
They get me out of
You
here.
hardly even know it's there. I drove in just to take care.
Yeah, so it's a 2-lot subdivision, and it's on a project site of 2.089 acres. Wetlands on the property is 0.12 acres, so the wetlands just pretty much run along the edge of the lake and river. Well-defined because it's a steep slope that goes down. The upland review area of the property is 1.43 acres. They are proposing 0 activity in the wetlands and 0.58 acres of upland review area disturbance. and all three of these I have not reviewed yet, so I don't have specific comments for it. This one's gonna involve floodplain, inland wetlands, although I'm not, I don't think it's gonna need any kind of floodplain permit. I think they're keeping everything up the hill far enough away from that.
Oh, yeah, it's quite a slope. It's way up there.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So, and what they're doing is they're leaving a little strip on Bridge Road so that they can access it from Bridge Road and not have a separate curb cut out onto the Route 34. That's not really changing anything for wetlands, though, but just a point of
Is
interest.
this gonna be allowed by P and Z, because it's kind of a flag lot?
It's not a flag lot. That extra area there is so they can get the access. They don't need it, though, to comply. So they have,
Okay,
they have
because they're
enough
on
frontage
34.
along
Okay.
34.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to have the driveway off 34 anyway, so. So what exactly is the regulated activity? I know there's a subdivision report. What is the activity?
Well, if you look on the plan, you'll see that both houses are within the upland review area. So in order to develop these properties, they have extensive development, house, fill of the backyard, septic systems, and recharge systems all within the upland review area.
But we're not approving the activity, this activity right now. These lots have to come back
What-
to us separately, wouldn't they?
You've got, this is gonna be a subdivision referral.
Okay,
And so there's no infrastructure that needs to be built in order to support the subdivision. So there's no road or detention
Okay.
basin or anything. So no, there's no regulated activity. However, they're showing you that there will be a need for regulated activity in
Oh, yeah.
order to build a house. So at this point, you would be looking at the lots to determine if they're appropriate for minimizing impact to wetlands.
okay.
But not approving a development.
Not approving development of the lots. Typically, your review, your referral comments, the last subdivision that came in on Elm Street, your referral comment was, hey, you want a note put on the subdivision plan that says that any activity within the upland review area or wetlands requires a separate inland wetlands application for regulated activity. And then you review that with the real plan that they're gonna come in once they have a buyer and they know exactly what they're gonna build. This is just a
Propose.
potential development plan to show you and to show the Planning and Zoning Commission that they could build on this lot. Assuming that you guys are okay with it in your referral.
If we're gonna do something like that, there needs to be better documentation and text language on these plans that call out, concept only, demonstration purposes only, something to the point where we are not stuck with.
And that would be my review comment. Like, for instance, I ask that this plan, the site plan, this should be called potential site plan. And there should be a note on here saying, this plan depicts potential site plan for the purpose of demonstrating the practicality of building on this lot, that kind of thing. But I always have to ask for it.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't do it.
They
They
hope you
just-
forget.
Yeah.
My initial comment when I looked at this was, I know you mentioned it's a steep slope down to the river, but it doesn't negate the fact that there needs to be a wetland and watercourse delineation. So that the upland review boundary that they created was done by somebody looking at a computer saying, here's where I think the edge is, and I'm gonna pull my upland review 150 feet back from that point. But there's no resource identification, there's no report submitted to justify what the resource is on site by a qualified person.
So you want a soils report?
Yeah, there should be a wetland watercourse delineation. and there's a swale just off the property to the west that they identify. The question is, could that be a potential regulated area?
Say it again, where?
To the west of the property, there's a discharge from a storm drain pipe
Where it says runoff?
that goes to the river.
You're talking
Yeah.
about way up near the road,
Yep,
okay?
you know, so whether or not that's
Well,
off-site
that's-
as I know it's off the property.
That would have to be apparent.
Yeah, it'd be approximate,
But they,
observed boundary.
but they should be able to stand at the corner of their property or within the state right-of-way, which they have the right to stand in,
Sure,
and visually see if that meets the definition of a water course.
yeah,
Okay.
or associated wetlands with it, who knows?
Yeah, because the river does come right by that area too, I think. The halfway river.
So that would be the southwest
Yeah,
corner.
because this is the halfway river, so that does combine with the halfway river, just before it hits Lake Sore, which is on this end.
Okay, we can get that. So wetland delineation and delineation of, or determination of what that runoff is up in the corner, because that also will change the upland review area. Not much, but it might change it a little bit.
So,
Hold on a second, let me just measure it. What scale is this, 20 scale, right? It actually, you know what, it doesn't, it's not gonna change the upland review line. Even if it is, it's still beyond the 100 feet. So that the line, the
Mhm.
red line there is not gonna change.
Yeah,
So it's really a moot issue.
okay, so the only thing I wanted to just clarify was that when I was going over this information, the explanation for the application says that it's a, it doesn't really say, but it says residential lots with associated site improvements. We're not approving any site improvements when we go through this application. So,
The application actually.
I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified, that's strictly a subdivision referral.
Good point, so we'll get them to,
It's, no, see, the described proposed activity is creation of two-lot residential subdivision with dwellings and associated site improvements. Now, maybe that just meant, but it says list activities in which to take place. It says construction of portions of both dwellings,
Yeah.
septic system, site
yeah,
grading,
that's wrong. So
erosion control, and portions of proposed
yeah, it's a
driveway.
good point, that's wrong. It's just a referral, they're not constructing that, they have to come back to you.
Okay.
So, good catch.
There's a clause in our regs that says that the commission has the right and the prerogative to increase their upland review area if they feel that the steep slopes are equivalent to increasing that upland review area. Do we think that that could be an issue here?
my opinion is that the 150 feet puts it so close to the road that, you know, 90% of the work is being done in the upland review area to
Okay,
begin
so it's a
with.
non-issue.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, good.
That's my own.
No, that, I
opinion.
agree, that's why I wanted to throw it out there.
You know, I'm still on the last comment that I'm reading the application, they actually checked off regulated activity, and there's no regulated activity. So I'll have to, I'll include that in my comments.
Are you
I had
sure?
circled a couple of the, incomplete application requirements, which was the soils report, a wetland assessment, and a minimum of 2 alternative plans.
Okay, a couple of things on that. Do you really want a wetlands assessment?
It depends on what they're coming in for. If they're saying that they're coming in to construct the project, then yeah. If they're saying that they're coming in.
You know, they
to
could actually, they could say, actually, they could propose everything there as regulated activity, and then they'd be obligated to follow that plan, if that's, like, they could do it all simultaneously.
It depends on what they wanted, what their intent was when they were putting this together, because
Yeah,
it sounds like
I guess
it's.
I gotta ask them.
Well, interestingly enough, when I Googled this address, Realtor.com came up, and there was a site plan on Realtor.com showing what they're selling, and it's different than this.
Huh,
So it's not significantly different. I mean, the portions of property are probably very similar, but it looked to me like the houses were different sizes and slightly
All right,
different
so
orientation. So just,
I think the whole issue is regulated
find out what we're
activity,
talking
how is that
about.
working
Yeah.
into the application? So
We gotta find out what they're doing.
I'll resolve that, I'll figure it out. You know,
okay.
but we still have to make a determination tonight,
No,
No,
or you have to get clarification
Oh,
first?
yeah, we can't determine if
Right,
we don't
so
know.
it's like incomplete until we hear it.
yeah, okay, yeah.
So do we want to table this to our
You had
next meeting?
suggested 3 things, soils report, you didn't know about a wetlands assessment. What was the other thing you said?
wetland water crystal delineation.
Alternatives.
No, there was something
Alternatives,
else.
Well-
2 alternatives.
Oh, alternatives, and that, the only comment I have about that is I always suggest to people who are subdividing that when there's regulated activity, to come up with alternatives to show the commission that you're minimizing the impact. Ultimately, the requiring specific alternates is when there's a direct wetland
A
activity.
public hearing,
Yeah.
when there's a public hearing.
That's not what our regs say. You know, guys,
It's
we
true,
get
it's
that a
not.
lot. Our regs do not say
Our
that.
regs say exactly what's on that application for, I went over it this evening before we came here.
The regs only say that we require alternatives. It doesn't say anything about direct impacts.
Yeah, I think they're,
It says absolutely nothing.
okay, well,
And-
that's something to clarify with your group,
Our group,
yeah.
The 2 of you, we do.
I don't know
Yeah.
if it's case law or maybe.
well, unless we go back and look at the statutes, but, where is
I don't
it?
know where I'm getting at, but I'm remembering that there was
Well,
a
I know they love to throw it at us.
so you remember it as a clarification too. I just don't remember where it came from.
I'm trying to remember, was it 7.6
And you've
or
heard that too?
7.5?
Yeah, but the way I've always practiced is if it's a public hearing, you have to come up with alternatives. If it's
Ooh.
not a public hearing, you can modify and shift
Yeah,
things
like
around, but
that's
it's
what I
not a
heard, that,
requirement to come up with
that if it's a
alternatives.
public hearing, you have to state in your approval that you evaluated, that they presented and you evaluated alternatives.
Right, feasible and prudent.
But so that's something for the subcommittee to
Alternatives.
maybe clean up a
Well,
little.
we won't remember if I don't write it down.
Okay.
So we're going to table this one until our next meeting, for more information before we decide what type of
We kind of
hearing
have to.
meeting.
Yeah, they got 65 days to
Okay.
start the hearing. Okay, so that's that one.
It's going to drive me crazy. That is-
IWC 2019-0211 Glen Howell Drive, Ventura, second floor addition, new garage, driveway modification and detention. Say that loud.
All right, this one, I've had a number of meetings with the property owners. And it started out as an architect wanting to come up with a plan. People bought the property, they want to upgrade the house. Started out with a agent approval, and as I got more and more information about it, I came to realize that what they were proposing extended beyond the limits of previous development and into the tree line. So it ended up being, look, you gotta come in with an application for this. So basically, there's two areas of wetlands, one in the rear, way out in the rear, and which has been encroached upon in the past, which goes way back in time. And then there's a wetland area kind of on the corner of Glen Hollow Drive and Wheeler Road. So what these people are doing, though, is that because of the addition to the house, the net increase in impervious area, it looks like what they're doing is that they can't afford, not money-wise, but they can't afford to pave the driveway because they don't have a big enough area to have recharge for it. So what they're doing is they're putting in structural grass for their driveway so that it'll take in water and it won't be impervious. And so that's what's very unique about this. But they're proposing a recharge area for what they can with an overflow down into the drainage system. Also unique is that wetland area that is off of the left side of the driveway, the east side of the driveway, it's a very wet area, but what's happening is it is flowing across the existing driveway, causing erosion and problems and flooding into the street. So they want to put a catch basin which is going to be near the wetlands. So, I told them that's another thing that you're going to be interested in taking a closer look at to make sure that the basin is put in so that it doesn't drain the wetland, but drains the overflow from the wetland so that it's not a problem with their driveway. So that's what this application is all about. It's on a piece of property that is approximately 3.085 acres. Wetlands on the property are 0.28 acres. Upland review area is 2.05 acres. They aren't proposing any direct wetland impact. In fact, the discussion with the area in the rear of the property is that they are agreeing to put in some markers that will mark the limits of future disturbance and maintenance, which will end up restoring that wetland up in the rear of the property. Because right now, historically, it was a meadow or a field or whatever, and it was cut. And so they're willing to put some markers in and let it go back to Mother Nature.
Did you see that property?
No.
No. Because to me, it looks like a vernal pool.
Oh, really?
Well, look at the contours.
Well, that's very possible, actually. Come to think of it, I think I remember discussing that with him, that, hey, the contours there, that it was a low spot. Because initially, it was like, we thought they had a violation there, and then when we took a closer look at the history of it.
Is that your property?
Yeah,
What?
Is that your
historically,
property?
I thought, I just saw my name written on the plans, and I'm like, holy crap,
Yeah,
this is
you're a
my
neighbor.
property?
Neighbor?
Are you building?
Oh, shit, I get to go sit out. Thank God. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut now.
Yeah, so I guess you do have to,
Recuse yourself.
I'm gonna go sit, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, take care of this.
So you're recusing?
Yes.
Okay.
So
For
it's
the
not
record.
his house, but it's his neighbor's? Oh, yes,
Commissioner
sure.
Stewart is recusing
He is.
himself.
So I do want to
Eddie.
point out one thing, the soils report talked about the eastern wetland, which is the Glen Hollow and Wheeler Road side wetland that has an intermittent water course that flows on the western edge of it. And if you look at the plans, you could see the wetland boundary and the arrows that go to a documented swale. And they don't identify that as
What sheet are you on?
any sheet. C100, they all show it. The cover sheet shows it too. In fact, you can see it best on the cover sheet.
Where is the swale?
Eastern,
So closer to the, on the eastern,
to the left side of the sheet, Wheeler Road and Glen Hollow, right at between wetland flag 3 and 4, you'll see arrows starting in the wetland and going out of the wetland. You'll see a
oh,
swale
yeah, yeah,
identified.
okay, I missed that. I didn't
So
see
that's
the-
identified in the soils report as an intermittent water course, which is also regulated.
Which extends the wetland, yeah, so that little point, that little, where the two curves come together on the upland review area, there's gonna be a tangent in there. I mean, it's not gonna change much, but it'll change it a little bit.
No, but it's another area to be concerned about
Sure, it's
with
another regulated area.
construction.
They're not proposing to go in there, but I hear what you're saying.
Right.
There's a little area, see the catch basin that they're proposing at the end of the driveway?
Mm-hmm.
There's a contour of 5, I can't make out the number, it must be a 528 contour, it's like a square.
Yep.
In that area, there's a pull-off that's been, something was in there, I don't know what it was, whether it was wood cutting or something, or cars parked or something. But there was a disturbance in there, that they're proposing some plantings to block it off.
And what's the need for the catch basin there?
The need for the catch basin is the water is flowing out of the wetland and across the driveway and presenting a lot of problems, so they want to catch the water before it flows across the driveway, the overflow. Because you can see the contours, it comes all down through there and goes across the driveway. It doesn't go over to that swale, that must be
This is on the top of the
that
hill.
swale
I
is
mean,
coming,
I drove
actually,
this one too. This
that
whole
swale
property
is
on
coming
top of the hill.
into the wetland, so, yeah.
Yeah,
'cause-
they have the arrows backwards.
Yeah, the arrow is, no, the arrow is on the bearing.
Oh, it's a perfect location.
What they did was, usually well, Jim's not here, but usually, he's the surveyor, but usually when they show survey data on a plan, if it's bearings, the south and the west tell you what direction, but if it's azimuths, if they're using azimuths and not bearings, then they put the arrow that shows you what direction it's going. They just, did overkill here and did it with the bearings.
Oh, yeah, the way the topo is, yeah, that swale is coming back into.
So that
the-
arrow goes with the bearing, not the.
Gotcha. But anyway, it's
Are we to assume that all of the light gray on this cover sheet is the existing conditions? Because there's no separate page of existing conditions. So,
Again, I didn't review this, but the first thing I'm gonna look at is, the survey and all that stuff. So
okay.
it looks to me like, yes, it's, they've screened out the existing conditions. Whether, what that's coming from, I gotta read it and comment on it, but I don't see a map references, topographic survey by Ventura dated March of 2018. So it's, it's by Lewis Associates.
Some of it's by Fuller Engineering.
So I gotta get clarification on that, is it an A2, T2, what's what, that kind of thing. So,
The other thing, I was hoping for a little bit more detail on the wetland sketch. The sketch was very, very loosey-goosey. And
all right, so you
I-
want
The sketch
a-
being the Google area?
Yeah, that one. And I was hoping for a lot more detail.
I think we should get some more information on the wetland and clarification of that.
Yeah, she really glosses over this little, that southern section, that southern wetland pocket. That's kind of, well, yeah, it's there, it's disturbed, yeah, it's there,
Yeah.
That's it.
you know.
end of story. So I would like more information on that.
All right, and the other thing we're talking about is,
We need to make a
oh,
determination on this,
survey.
right?
okay, so what's it gonna be?
There could be some significant impact with the catch basin. I'm thinking, what do you think, Jim? And there are neighbors around, they may have some input, or may want to have some input. So therefore, it would be in the public interest. What do you think, guys?
I think it should be a public hearing.
Yeah,
Not
I
that I
agree.
want to go through it, but.
Okay, then
I
I move we
agree.
bring this to a public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Spence, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by everybody. All those in favor?
Or
Keith
Keith.
first.
All those in favor of moving this to a public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? And that could will reflect that Commissioner Stewart recused himself in this matter.
Yes, come back.
We voted you off the island, sir.
You've been drummed out. Except it's not that easy.
Okay,
Next.
Record will reflect that Commissioner Stewart has returned and rejoined. Handsome as ever.
Okay.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is deliberations. There's nothing completed from this agenda. IWC 2018-11, 104 Elm Street, Connecticut Houses LLC, care of Paul Duh. Removal of stockpile material in a regulated area and subdivision referral. For the record, we've all received a draft copy of the letter as composed by staff, but as the chairman, I do not believe that we could vote today on this matter, correct? Because I don't think we have the numbers. Because of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us present tonight, I believe only 3 of us were here for all the portions, right?
Correct.
okay, so you don't have a quorum, and how much time do we have left to vote?
Well, it's fine, you have 35 days, so you can do it next meeting.
So we have enough time to hit it on the next meeting?
Yeah.
So
Because we've already.
we should revisit this at our January 23rd, 2019 meeting.
This was a public hearing, right? Regular hearing?
This was a regular hearing,
Regular meeting.
so we're still in the 65 days. Hold on.
It's a regular meeting?
It's a regular.
Oh, I remember
meeting.
this, with the Corduroy Road.
Yep. Oh, they granted us an extension, and we have 39 days left. But yes, we
Who's
can,
talking about?
We have enough time to take it up at our next meeting?
39 days, yeah. We only need 14.
Correct. No, they gave us an extension. So, their public hearing or decision date, because it was regular, was November 16th. They used 26 days to get us to the December 12th meeting. And then they had 39. Look at this. We don't do, we might be over.
So we have to have a special meeting just to vote on that before the,
I think
before
you
the
do.
Yeah, I think we
extension
do.
expires.
Yeah.
Can we ask for another extension?
No, that will be the end of their 65 days. We already did the original 65, and we're into the extra 65. Because this was originally given to us in September.
What if I pull the file around right now?
I'm sorry?
Nothing.
When is the drop dead date?
It's going to have to be before next week. Right, because we have one. It would have to be before next Friday.
Before next Friday, so next week.
Mhm.
So we have two options, as I see it. We either call a special meeting, well, we have to call a special meeting, because otherwise we have to deny it.
I mean, how
Or
many
they have
people,
to
how many
withdraw it.
people can vote?
Have to have four.
4
That have
I was under the
heard the,
impression that if you had a quorum in the meeting, all right, all you need is a majority of that quorum.
Oh, but if you weren't at the meeting, you didn't review the,
I'm gonna abstain. Then therefore, you still have a majority, right? You got 5 people
well,
to
Jeff wasn't
abstain.
here for all of it either.
to abstain,
Yeah.
2 abstain,
yeah.
3 vote. You got a majority votes? At least that's been always what told to me, is you still got a majority of the people who show up voting for it.
Interesting.
Let me get hold of this.
I
So-
agree, I seem to remember,
I mean, I've done that many times.
yeah. You need a
You don't need a
quorum.
majority of the entire
So.
board, you just need a
so-
majority of the people who are there.
Yeah, but there were 2 meetings, right? So do we even know how many people?
Keith, were you there for
I
both
was at
meetings?
the
Yeah.
first one.
I was there for all.
The other thing to do would be to
So
adjourn
you were
this
at the
meeting
first-
and listen to the tape from last
There's
meeting.
no tape, she said, because
Well, there's a recording.
Yeah, raise the bathroom.
Sure.
I'm gonna say no.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, that would take, so you're saying so you don't qualify because you weren't here. So who who even qualifies? Who,
Lois, myself, and Keith.
so
Lois,
there's-
were you here for all of them?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
So there's three of
Didn't
you
you have to
that,
miss one?
And 2 abstain.
I missed.
That's approved.
and 2
There wasn't
abstain.
any, no, 104
So
was
you're saying
confusing.
Yeah.
three,
No, she didn't miss
So I
it.
didn't miss it.
3 of the 5 is a quorum. I thought it had
3
to
or
be.
5 is
And
a
Keith
vote.
It's a
was here
vote.
for
We
all.
have a
of them.
quorum. It
You
doesn't
have,
have to be a quorum of the people that were at every meeting.
3 of the 5 can vote.
As long as they all vote the same way. I mean, that's,
Well,
we're
we
just
still
assuming.
voted what we did.
Why don't you just take a break, I'll get a clarification on it.
5-minute recess.
I'll use the.
No, I think, now that I know that we can do that on minutes too.
Probably something I
So
should
I think
know as
that's
the
fine.
chairman, huh?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Is there anything in the Roberts, in the Roberts rule?
He's looking it up.
I don't,
I'm
I can't even
looking
read the
In the
table of
state
contents of this.
statutes right now.
I don't blame you. It's a-
I don't have my phone, so I can't.
Who's
Google it.
Roberts, man? Get him.
He's an old English guy.
Who was a real stickler.
An old English guy that was a general in the US Army?
Well, he started out in England.
Well, we all started out in England, didn't we?
I don't, I'm just making it up.
Me too.
I like my land use,
Oh,
land use
recording.
experience.
Hold
Jesus,
on,
sounds a-
hold
Hold on,
on.
guys,
hold
we're
on.
gonna turn off the
Sounds a
recording.
lot like my life. Executive board, committees, officers, minutes, reports, and officers, reports of boards and committees. So,
Was Ross here?
That's an interesting question. We were talking about that in the office because we were talking about how there's one town that does
Conference
Skype
calling?
seeing one of their members from Florida,
Huh,
and whether or not that was legitimate, to
yeah.
be
big boards of,
participating via.
big boards of, board of directors do that constantly, big businesses.
Yeah, but are they conducting
Yeah,
business?
but it's not a
business?
public, remember, this is a public.
No, this was a regular
Process.
hearing.
No, I
Oh,
mean,
No, I
this is a
understand. You're
public
right.
Public
process.
process,
Oh.
yeah.
okay. Sorry.
We might have the same issue on the next item.
That's
Well, both
true.
of them were gonna have this, yeah, both of the,
Yeah.
yeah, both of them were gonna have.
All right, so we're skipping
Let's
down
go to
to
bond
activities and
releases.
reports. We've got agent approvals. We got a, agent approval for 16 Wildwood Lane propane tank and existing shed. IA 2018-41 for 63 Countryside Drive, which was a permit for a gazebo. IA 2018-42, 45 Cutlass Farm Road, which is a generator. And IA 2019-01, which is 20 Longview Road for a propane tank. We had no permitted uses as of right to report, and then we are down to enforcement.
Did we
We
skip?
didn't do bond
We didn't do
releases.
bond
Two
releases or
sections.
time extensions.
Oh, I thought you said you couldn't go for those, but you were talking about 71 Turkey.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So bond release reduction reports,
Wait, sorry.
no, I'm sorry,
The other one, this is just the handheld.
sorry.
I want to. Okey dokey.
IWC 2015-10, 448 Pepper Street, release of bond in the amount of $48,000 requested by RGS Property LLC. A replacement bond in the amount of $41,000 has been received per new, or by new owner.
Yeah, this is a little bit unique in that the property was sold, and the new buyers are not going to do the work that was proposed with this original bond, but they're going to do a portion of it. And then they got an approval to do a portion, something a little different. And so when I reviewed the bond for this, it really didn't change all that much. It went from 48 to 41. The P and Z bond was drastically different. So they've posted the 41, and the others want to get the 48,000 back. That's what that's all about.
Do you recommend
If
that
you
this is
remember,
okay?
this is, was
Which one is this?
really good stuff.
Oh, this is really good stuff?
Yeah, so when you get to the back of the property, the back of the
Oh,
building.
yes.
If you
Yes,
go
yes, yes.
left, there was a parking lot there that had to be refurbished and
Mhm.
cleaned up and some remediation with some plantings. And then if you go right, that's, another parking area. They're now changing it into more of a, loading dock area. That's not in the regulated area as much as the other to the left. But when I recalculated, the additional, that was subtracted from that was there's some area out in front of the building that was within a regulated area that's no longer, being done.
So this is okay as far as you're concerned?
Yes.
Move to release the bond?
We have a motion by Commissioner Spence. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stewart. All those in favor of releasing the bond, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Release the bond, so. I always wanted to say that. Time extensions, IWV 2017-07, R127, Main Street, Keeler. Request for 1 year to complete remediation work.
You may recall this was for a, as it says, a remediation. And at the time, he made the request to not do the remediation right away, that the request was that it be deferred, instead of doing it in the spring, it be deferred to the fall, because they had some activity that they wanted to complete in that area before they went ahead and did the plantings. And I don't know if you want to fill in the rest, but I don't believe they did all that activity. I think it shut down before you did all that activity.
Yeah, Jay Keeler. Good evening, everybody. Been a while since I've been here. Yeah, when the Walmart deal fell apart, just to give you a little background, when a ShopRite pulled out of my site, John Kimball was doing the site work on the site, and he was not able to complete it, so the job stopped. And we are working on getting a new contractor in there. We're close to doing that. And hopefully we get started up soon with the work so we can get that site looking a lot better than it is now. There has been discussion about alteration of the plan in the future. We're talking to different people, and the outline of the project may change. And if we did this work this remediation work now, we may have to remove it. So we were looking to get an extension of 1 year on that work. We expect we will be in front of your commission in about 6 to 7 months with a modification or a new application.
So this was work that was to be completed this fall, right?
Yes,
If I'm looking at this document correctly, October 1st of 2018?
yes.
Okay, so it's now January 9th of 2019. And we're looking for another year to remediate.
What's the likelihood of your project being done between July of this year and January of next year? That's only 6 months.
Well, we're close to signing a contract now for startup of the site work. We're very close. We expect to sign that up within a month. The likelihood, this potential new application or a modification to the project, the type of project. We've had some preliminary meetings. There's a lot of interest in the project. There's a process of working with planning and zoning, writing a new regulation. So that will take at least 6 months. And after that, we have done a lot of work on the plans already, anticipating that it would be something that the town would want. So I would say an application late in the summer or is probably the fastest time frame for getting in front of you, your commission again, to modify or to either to modify the old application and incorporate the mitigation into that plan, or to file, rather than a modification, a totally new application, and incorporate the mitigation into that plan.
This is a tough one.
And so if you did the remediation now, you're saying that you,
Well, we'd have to,
it would.
in the area, we'd have to remove a good portion of it, then put it back. So,
Why would you have to do that?
pardon me?
Why would you have to do that?
Well, if you put something in that area, like a portion of a septic system, a leaching trench, or a couple trenches, and you planted the plants first, you wouldn't have the ability to put them between the trenches or a recharge system.
So the remediation work was in an area that was not being developed.
That's right, under the original plan. It was between
So
50
you're
and 100 feet away.
considering expanding your development?
Well, there'd be more, yes, but there would be less pavement, more green areas over the entire site.
Right, but you're saying you're gonna be proposing expanding your development into more regulated areas?
Yes, yes.
Well, how about we revisit this then when we get that application? Rather than waiting a whole year, because almost guaranteed you'll be back at that point saying, I can't do it now either.
Well, that's what he's saying, he's gonna come in with an application.
Right, so I mean, if we revisit it at that point, rather than giving an extension to next January, or whenever that is, when is the next, the extension would be what?
No, he's telling you he's not gonna have the plan until next January, right?
Well, he was talking
I think
July.
I think if things go along reasonably smoothly, late this summer, we could have either an application for a modification or a new application in front of your commission, and then we could incorporate the plantings into that plan.
Jay, are you just using a septic system as an example, or is that what you're gonna be proposing?
It is likely going to be a septic system and possibly a patio for a restaurant.
All right, so you guys realize that you can't plant much over a septic system. So this was a buffer, this was a buffer with mature trees, and there's nothing there
Right.
now. So if they put a septic system in, you're not gonna have much of a buffer other than grass. So, I mean, I want them to know what they're gonna be facing. I mean, you're taking a planted
Well, you
buffer.
can plant some of the shrubbery, and I've talked with Doug Rich on this. His planting plan had the larger trees off to the side, and the smaller shrubs were in the center. And these septic systems have 6 feet between them. So there's certainly area where you could plant these plants. And the trees, the larger trees were to the right and the left, there would be no septic systems there.
Right, well, it's up to the commission, but, you know, the septic system has to be maintained. I don't know how you maintain a buffer, a planted buffer in the middle of a septic system. I mean, I've never.
It's just gonna, I mean, I don't wanna feel like we're focusing in on the one area versus what the rest of the site looks like right now, and like, that might be okay, depending on how the rest ends up looking, and if there's a significant reduction in impervious surfaces from what was before. I don't know, there might be some, it sounds like the plan's gonna be a lot different from
Yes.
what you got approved.
Yes.
But, if it's a 6 or 8 month delay to get that, or what I don't want to have, I guess, have happen, this is my own opinion, is that if we delay it until, say, September, October of this year, and, you know, the project, whatever, the deal falls apart and nothing ends up happening, I don't want to be out of the growing season to be able to plant, where now you're in 2020 to have to do the plantings. So if we put some kind of deadline so that we still have a buffer to be able to do the plantings next fall, then, I mean, I think that's,
Well, how about
An
if I
option.
just make
I don't
a
know.
commitment that if I don't have an alternative project in front of you, that we'll do it before, a year late. In other words, I think the permit required to be completed by the end of October.
It was supposed to be completed by.
October 1st.
Yeah, unfortunately, we already have, unfortunately, we already did all that. Where it was, it's very clearly spelled out. The work shall commence no later than September 1st, 2018, and to be completed within 30 days by October 1st, 2018. With the exception of following up, monitoring, and reporting and corrective maintenance as actions are needed.
So in the meantime, I think that the problem is that it's unprotected. There is no buffer at the moment, and I think that's the issue. At least it is in my mind. There's
And now we're in,
And-
the second week of January, and nothing can be planted there
nothing
anyway.
planted now.
you're looking at April, May, earliest anyway, to, if you're gonna do the planting.
Do anything.
Yeah, so add 2 months to it, and you're at is July.
Well, I mean,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, what is the actual, you said a year, what would that year end at?
1 year from the date that it was originally supposed
That
to
was
be
October
completed.
1st.
October 1st, so you're talking about 1 year, you're talking about October 1st,
Yeah, I'm not asking 1
2019.
year from now, obviously.
Okay, so
I'm saying,
2019.
and I'm saying I think that's too late. Because by October 1st,
Yeah, then we're back
if
in
it's
the
not
same
done,
position.
then I think it's too late in the season. I think, we have some room with August,
Well, September
September.
1st, 11 months?
Whatever you think.
I don't remember, but how many plants, there weren't a lot of plants there, right?
Kind of a
There
small
weren't a
area.
lot of plants?
Yeah, how many plants were? You remember?
If I had the plan, I'd have to count them up.
Is that area that we're talking about remediating, is that 100% rock right now?
Which area?
The one that we're remediating?
Oh, no,
I can't talk.
there's been no disturbance of the soil at all.
All they did was
It's
cut
the
the
trees.
trees
It's
down.
just cutting
Okay, just the tree. I
trees that
wasn't
were
sure exactly
75
where
to
that
100.
line was, because I know you
Yeah.
got a lot of boulders there, but I wasn't sure if that.
No,
was
there's
the
been
one.
no
Okay.
equipment was in there, just, people with saws.
Just the tree guard.
There's been no disturbance of in the old days, this would have been considered a regulated activity, and the trees were taken out over a two-year period. They were thinned, and then the final 5 came down. And so none of the soil has been disturbed, the roots are still there. There's actually a stone wall, and that is the limit of, there's a stone wall slightly uphill.
So if you could look and see how many plantings we were talking, that would be great. If you could look at your plan and see what kind of plantings we were talking about.
How many trees?
Or just what was on it. I don't remember.
I'm sorry, what was one?
What kind of planting plan did you have on it? How many plants, bushes, trees?
The proposed, let's see, red maple, 6-foot height. 2 of those, gray birch, 6-foot height. 3 of those, black tupelo, 1 of those, 6-foot height. And then red chokeberry, 24 to 36 inch height. He's got 8 of those. Shadblow serviceberry, 6 of those. 4 witch hazel. These are all 3 to 4 feet in height.
Is there any of this that you could put in that would not be disturbed in the future?
I could, well, that's a good question.
That's the entire list.
Yes, I could put in, they have the larger trees. The red maples, the gray birch, and the black tupelo, those could go in this spring without affecting the potential future plan. Yes.
What are they, like on the edges or something?
Yes, yeah, the larger trees are to the right or to the left. So, you know, maybe that's a way to get some of the work done.
And that's the whole list?
Pardon me?
That's the entire list?
No, I got interrupted there.
You stopped at hay.
Those are the trees. There's a total of 14, 18, 25, 36,
Okay, so there were.
44 of
Oh, there
these
was
3-foot-high shrubs.
Too much to be
Chokeberry,
transplanted.
shadblow, witch hazel, common ninebark or ninnabark,
Nine.
snowberry, high bush blueberry, and viburnum.
So all the trees could go in?
All the large trees could go in.
Okay, so I would make a motion that all the large trees be installed by June 15th.
Sure.
And an extension for the remainder be given until September 1st.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
What about the
By
the
June
other
15th,
conditions
yeah.
here? There was the time.
What's the second deadline?
September
September
1st.
1st.
The monitoring, so what does that do for our monitoring reports? Invasive stuff, we had in here, the wetland agent should be notified at least 48 hours prior to starting any work.
It's all same.
I think
Same.
it would still be the same. Monitoring, once per year after the trees are basically,
So all the plants are to be in by September 1st?
yes.
Okay, is there anything else? Oh, we have a motion. Want a second?
We have a
Yeah,
second.
seconded.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Commissioner Romano, motion passes.
Oh, you're abstaining?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion passes with 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Wait for Scott. I'm assuming he's getting the answer on our voting question.
Anyone want to lay any odds?
It'd be great if you could, I wouldn't,
It would be great.
It would be good. Again, I don't want to come in for another meeting.
yeah, I get it.
So we're
Anything
down
else
to,
we can do?
we're down to status updates.
Like
I
some
guess.
minutes?
Yeah, I know, why don't we do
No,
some
we do
minutes?
We don't need that.
We could do minutes. Yep.
Okay, the minutes of the December 12th, 2018 meeting, I will entertain a motion.
Working on it just a moment.
Yep.
Right ones here. I have too many. Even though I try so hard to get organized. I swear. If you're a green men that run up and grab everything and run away. Look at it. It comes up next to me on my application. Send me the first one. Good job, by the way, sir. Maybe put them on. Now, maybe we'll do the minutes, maybe we won't.
Here.
Thank you.
She
but
had
they-
the notes.
I had my little
All right,
scribbles
well, you
on 'em.
can't say anything then, you just
I,
right here.
yes, you're right. Oh, there were some little minor, most of it was very, very minor. There was one. There they are, see, it did get mixed in with an application. Okay. Let's start again here, okay. Move to approve with some changes.
Okay.
Go ahead. Tell me what page.
Do we need a second, or?
Anybody gonna second that?
Oh, second.
Are you here?
Yes.
Okay. You were, yes,
On
sorry.
page 2,
Okay.
the second to the last paragraph, on the very last line, the last sentence says pertain to the area being disturbed. You see where I am? And it should be does not speak to areas not being disturbed.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if it's important enough, but there was no way that Sarah could have known this, but a corduroy road, it's capitalized, but it's
Oh.
supposed to be the description of a road, not a road,
Yeah, okay.
not a named road.
I know. It's the wetland jargon, believe me.
Yes, you'll get the
It's a
hang of it.
long flight, it's a long time training.
God, it smells like cigarettes.
I didn't do it. Okay. On page 4, the
Okay.
very last paragraph,
Yep.
first sentence,
Mhm.
it's supposed to be, Mr. Carboni stated, Pure Point advised that people often do one of two things. So it should be D-O-O-N-E.
Okay.
Okay. On page 5, 4 lines up, Commissioner Spence, boy, she talks too much, expressed concern about the possibility of invasives and stilt grass, not steel grass,
L-I-T.
S-T-I-L-T.
Yep.
It's another one you'll get the hang of.
And
That's-
it's,
that
you
would-
know,
that comes
sometimes you
out of-
can't hear it. on
That's
the-
true, oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It's all good.
Well,
Yeah, you
get a
did
feel
great.
for it after a
These are
while.
very, very detailed. I think that might be it.
Anybody else have any changes?
Okay.
Okay.
Good job.
All those in favor of approving the minutes with those changes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Commissioner Shamus is
Yep.
abstaining. Motion carries.
So what did you guys decide on that? All trees within by June 1st and the remainder of the plantings by September 1st? And that was it?
Yep.
All right, so he confirmed what you guys, the conclusion you guys came to, that you need a quorum of the commission to hold business. And so holding business is voting,
Oh,
so
so we can't do it.
you cannot do it. You gotta have a special meeting.
Okay.
What? I thought
What?
you just said that we had a quorum to do business.
You have to have a quorum of the commission in order to do business. You don't have a quorum.
We do.
We have a quorum.
To vote.
We need
That's-
a vote.
that's- If you're voting, you're doing business, so you need a quorum of the commission.
Which is 4 members.
4 members, 2 of you
To
aren't
vote.
voting, only 3 are, so
You
you don't
need
have
a
a.
quorum of voting members.
Yeah.
Yeah, of quorum
Yes.
of the commission, which is 4 people, you only got 3.
That's my fault.
But if we're voting,
You're
Just
holding
abstain.
business. You're doing business of the commission, so you need 4
He
people.
says we're not voting.
I don't think an
We're-
abstention
we're-
is a vote.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
You're
but
saying
they're
an abstention.
present,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I don't think that's considered.
It's a nice
gray
try.
area, we're gonna have to
Yeah,
change those
very
bylaws.
You're for us lazy commissioners.
So, we need to talk
So-
about when you want to have this special meeting.
And I need to,
To notice it.
next week.
And the special meeting's only for the purpose of what it's publicized for.
Right,
And you need the people that are gonna vote to be here.
Oh, absolutely.
And to have, or the others to have listened to the tape, so that they know what's
We
talking
need 4
about.
people that have listened to everything.
Right.
So before, we need to talk to Clark
And-
There's a,
and Ross to
And
see
Ross.
if they can
You,
come.
yeah, you can talk and, or Donna can talk and we
or
can
just send
find
an
out.
email
who
out
can-
to everyone
Mhm.
saying, can you,
Yeah, and then once we know, we can then publish.
You guys are both here late for the meeting on next Thursday, so ideally it would be,
Well, I'm here late, and I may or may not be, depending on, what's happening with that meeting is that they don't have any, there's only 2 minor
Oh, no
things.
business.
Yeah, they're just voting on something, so I may not go to it, but if.
what
I
time do you
need to-
guys get done for the
But
day?
whenever you have your special meeting, if I need to stay for that, then I
What
can-
time do you guys get done for the day?
We're, 5 o'clock-ish.
So if we can if we do it on that, well, if we do it on that day, well, any day next week,
yeah.
if we can get here closer to
Well, if
5,
I have to legal notice it, I have to get it.
You could
into-
do it anytime, you could do it in the morning,
I don't
you could
think
do
you
it.
need
in the
to
afternoon.
put-
I can't do it in the morning.
Okay, I'm just
You only
saying.
need to put it you only need that 24-hour notice on the bulletin board.
it's
Okay.
not a public hearing or anything, it's just
Oh,
a,
it's just a
Yeah.
So
vote.
it's just,
just a
yeah,
meeting.
Okay, good. Thank
I
you.
think it's a little
Yeah,
easier.
I
than
So,
I thought it was gonna be.
tomorrow, can you maybe, I'm asking and not telling, so can you maybe send out an email to the commission,
Yes,
and we could decide what a good day for us to meet next week?
okay.
I can get here, I can't get here in the morning unless we're doing it on the holiday. But I could
Is there a
probably,
holiday
Is
next
the
week?
holiday?
No, there's
Monday.
no,
That's the
that's,
week
that's
after.
the week after.
Yeah.
The 17th.
Oh, and
we're-
chances are town hall's closed anyway.
Yeah, we
No,
are,
it's
would
close. You can't
Yeah.
do it on a
So-
holiday.
Martin, you're thinking Martin Luther King, and that's not next week, that's the week after.
Oh, okay.
okay.
If I need to listen to something, the only day I couldn't do would be Thursday.
Well, if we can get Ross and
Then I
Clark,
won't even listen to anything.
then you're good.
So I can do it any day.
I'm open.
Next, I'll try to get here 5:30, any day next week. If it's Thursday, I'll have to bring my kids. But if it's only 10 minutes, I'll just throw
Yeah,
my
it's not gonna
phone
be long.
and call it
It's
a day.
Just
You
leave them
just
in the
gotta
car.
read through the draft,
Right next to the police station in the
Yeah,
winter. Sure. That'll work out great for me.
All right, Donna will pursue
Bring up
that.
a
see
little
if she
CD
can-
player
They'll be
and
fine.
stick a DVD in it.
My 4-year-old will vote.
Okay, so we have to go back to the status updates. We did our agent activity reports, we did the minutes, so we,
So, I'm sorry, the special meeting is gonna be for 104 and 71.
yes. Well,
Well, it's only a couple days.
yeah. Well, actually, let's look at 71 Turkey.
We just closed 71 last time, right?
Right,
We closed
so,
them both last time.
But you know what, if we're gonna have a special meeting, we might as well just vote on them both.
This is
It's only
fine.
gonna take an extra 10 minutes.
I know, I'm just
Done.
trying to remember whether you can vote on that one tonight.
We can't.
It
because
doesn't
we don't have
matter,
the
we can't
members.
vote on it.
Well, that was only, but wasn't this one only one meeting? It opened and closed the same night,
No, it didn't.
No, that was
I
two.
was,
It was two, they asked for
that
more
was two.
information.
I was at one of them.
Yeah, I remember that.
No chance we could vote on
It was November
an
7th and December 12th.
extension, right?
Hmm? Vote on what?
We have to vote in person at a meeting, a publicized meeting.
I think so. Yeah,
That's something we should probably look at too, if we possibly can.
I think that's a
'Cause-
statutory thing.
Is it? Because the way we are pursuing
Don't
this now.
forget, you're not just voting,
Yeah,
you're
you're just-
deliberating.
Yeah.
You had a discussion where you asked for
I
a
thought,
draft.
oh, it doesn't
and then
count as
you opened
deliberation.
deliberations. You have to
You're right.
deliberate.
Yeah, you have to look each other in the eye and feel the
Stare
pressure.
each other down.
You people need to
Okay.
come to the meetings. I know. All right, so yes, it is both of them.
Okay.
I tried my best. No, we have to go through, you wanted to do the status updates of 63 Countryside Drive and 104 Stanley, and then we will be
No, I
almost
got that
done.
other thing to do.
And you've got the other
Let's
thing
meet.
to do.
Okay,
So we're
so,
going back
So
to
we need to move
item 11 under enforcement, 11C.
so we've got status updates. Those are just the first one, 63 Countryside Administrative Remediation Submission received per commission determination, scarifying topsoil and seeding of conservation area. I'm trying to remember why that's on there.
It's just an update.
It was an update that there was a little bit of confusion about the remediation of that upper area, and that due to the presence of utilities through that area, that's what, I think this got on here because it was Denise wanting a little bit of comfort in the fact that that's what, she's telling you that's what's gonna get done there, that it's gonna be scarified, topsoil and seeding, so it'll be left to just be like meadow grass or something in that area. You're not gonna get bushes and trees or woods put back there.
So, but the way this reads, it sounds like the whole thing is just gonna be scarified, topsoiled and.
Yeah, the whole
seeded.
thing, it's just a small area up by.
Oh, that's the small one, okay,
Yeah.
okay, so we're not talking about the big one, we've had so many. I
This
can't
was the
get
one with
confused.
the, off the cul-de-sac, and then back in the property, there was a gazebo.
Okay.
All right, so you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, and then 104 Stanley Road, what they did there is, we received an intermittent monitoring report. They didn't really owe us one yet, but they gave us the report because in the report, there's a request to put in some trees, some additional trees. And we just want to go in there by hand and put a couple of trees in. And so they put that in the report, and I figured you guys can just weigh in on that.
I very rarely
So it's-
complain about additional trees.
It says, in addition to agreeing to remove the noted invasive vegetation, the owner indicated that he may install native flowering trees such as flowering dogwood and redbuds in the future. This is a beneficial activity that we support. If completed, it can and should be done in a manner that minimizes disturbance to surrounding native vegetation. It's in a letter dated 12/5/2018 from William Kenny. Anybody have a problem with that? Those species of trees are okay?
Yeah, I don't have an issue. I'm not gonna get critical over an interim report, but it'd be nice to have like documented photos that go along with these to see what they're saying.
I think my feeling on that is I think what you guys should do is we should add that to the condition of approval. I've got a standard condition that I put in there, so I'll change the standard, the template for that.
That's a good idea.
So the future ones, it's very clear.
Okay.
Excellent.
So change template.
Okay, on to other general discussions. We already discussed our minutes. Clarification of agent approval procedure, Scott.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to the commission. We've got an application that brought up an issue which I discussed with the commission in the past. And in dealing with the applicant on this one, I realized that it was quite a while ago, and I think Lois was the only one. And that is, when you guys originally told me what the parameters were for issuing agent approvals, it was, in a previously disturbed and developed area, not in a virgin area, not clearing woods or anything like that. And so that's what I've been doing. And then also, you guys wanted to, when I issue an agent approval, to kind of treat it like the applications before the commission and require that, where practical, require that they put in a couple of markers. And I've been doing that. And I got an application where the applicant is pushing back on that, saying, where does it say I have to do that? Where, my lawyer says it doesn't say anywhere that you have the right to do that. My response is twofold in that, number one, I wanted to just reconfirm or confirm that the commission still feels that that's what you want me to do for agent approvals. That's the first thing. And I'm seeing nodding. Does everybody agree that that's something that, I should be requiring as part of the agent approval?
With your discretion, absolutely.
Yeah, and the way I'm gonna put it to them is that the commission is offering that as an option to do administratively. You can have an administrative approval if you put
Expedited.
in markers, and if you don't wanna put in
They can come
markers,
here.
then he could come here for an application to the commission and say, I don't wanna put markers in,
And we
and
may
present
say
it
no.
that way.
Yeah.
We may say a condition of your approval is put markers in.
Yeah, I mean, you could go either way, but he
And then
has,
maybe also include a list of the fees associated with.
well, I
With
we
having an application
explain
involved.
that.
Okay.
We will be explaining that. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce the written part of that in the minutes of this meeting, that you guys, many of you new commissioners, agree with that old advisement that I'll continue to do that with the markers.
Do we have in our bylaws, something about how to handle administrative approvals? And should we?
I don't think it's in your bylaws, I think it's in your regulations, there's a thing about agent approvals.
No, I understand
That's all.
that, but,
There's nothing.
but some of these specifics where it's like, if people come in and they challenge it,
looking
it's not
for it to
written
be
anywhere
done.
kind of thing?
Well, it's
you know?
written that no, the way it works is that if I issue an agent approval, they can
bring it to the
They
commission
can
if they're not
appeal
happy with
that. They
it.
could appeal
Yeah.
it to the commission. And I'll double check that, because the reason I just hesitated, because I know that when the zoning enforcement officer makes a decision and it's questioned, it's appealed to the ZBA.
CBA, yeah,
We do not appeal to the ZBA, but
90% sure they can appeal
Yeah.
it to us.
yeah, that's I am too. And there's very little in that, so why don't you, turn to that and we'll just see what it says.
I'll figure out where it is first. Appeals. No, it's-
No, permitted agent approvals, I think, isn't there?
No, it'd be before that.
So I was thinking.
Page right there, 12, section 12.
Okay.
Good set of glasses on.
Appeal of agent's decision to commission.
Yeah,
So
okay,
that's
so that's exactly what I was gonna tell them.
Yeah.
If you don't like that, you can appeal it to
Right,
the
okay,
commission.
good. And then we'll tell them to do it.
All right.
The way I look at it is that it's just like anything that gets grandfathered, as soon as you change it, you gotta bring it up to code. So,
So that's the first time we got that, but I thought that I'd ask the commission, so thank you, and I'll pursue that.
Anything from our Regulation Amendment Committee?
well, we're still batting things back and forth. It's a slow process.
It's in
Understood.
Lois's hands.
I'm not so sure.
Public Outreach Committee?
Nothing. Oh, I went to I might have told you, last time, the Conservation Commission meeting, and they were working on some information to the public about recycling, but that's a good avenue to take. If we want some help, it could be the Conservation Commission to kind of work in tandem and get public information out there.
Excellent.
So, but that's a future.
Guess what time it is?
Any correspondence?
No.
Journal.
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
got a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Spence, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shamus, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Meeting's adjourned.